I wanted to touch on you and your kind of day-to-day approach. It seems like throughout your career, you've kind of done a really hard thing and then done another really hard thing. So there's a lot of grit and persistence there. It seems like that may be part of your superpower. Yeah, I guess do you agree with that? And how would you say you cultivate that on a day-to-day basis? Because I do think that is just something that all founders struggle with, especially you mentioned getting lonely in that type of role. And it's just so important to be able to have that persistence. So curious on your approach there.
Yeah, no, every day you've got to be persistent and you got to pretend like it could be your last day if you're not. The real startup mentality is, there's no going back. It's crossing a chasm, either dying, not figuratively, but you've got to run through that wall, period, no matter what it takes. And it's not pretty. It's horribly ugly at times, and it's extremely lonely. I don't know how many of you guys have had employees or companies. I can tell you that I've sat in rooms before where we have less than 1 month of money in the account, and I got all these employees looking at me through the other side, and I'm sitting there and I go, hey, yeah, it's going to be okay. And you're sitting there, and then you go home and talk to your spouse, and you're like, holy moly, we got to feel this. We've all been there. It's very scary. You got to have faith in yourself. And, every day, the way my wife even gets mad at me sometimes, she's like, you should have gone more traditional sometimes. She'll even say that to me after all this. She's like, because things are so like this. It's like flying a plane, if a little bit at any given second. So I get up every day, usually very early. I'm an early guy, like 4:35 a.m. almost every day, except for when I've been out too late the night before. But began by trying to spend 30 minutes for myself to walk with my wife or spend time exercising a little bit, even I can't tell. And then right after that, I go in and I make a punch list for that day, every day. And digital or sometimes sticky notes, all backed. And every day, I don't finish my day till everything's been moved. Doesn't mean completed, but everything's been moved. And I try to keep that in a very systematic way. So I have my own really crazy thing. You'll see I have like all these papers all filed differently. It works for me as a system. So every day, just get up, try to move the needle, even if it's just a little bit. One communication on something strategic that's supposed to happen 6 months from now. You're laying those seeds. Every day you focus and be ready for rejection. You got to grow thick skin. We've all been rejected in many areas of our lives before, right? So make that's a norm in entrepreneurship. So grit, perseverance. If you don't think you can do it, it won't happen. You got to run through the wall. I always talk about it. It's like you don't know whether you're going to be okay or not, but you got to have that faith that you will be, because something drove you to wanting to be that entrepreneur. And I believe everybody in their life's going to be an entrepreneur at some point, whether they like it or not. It may come when you're retiring. It may come, because you lost your job. It may become because you woke up in the middle of the night with an idea to change the world. And so I believe everybody in their life, even if it's for a week of transition from a job, you go through an entrepreneurial mindset. It's important to train yourself to be ready for that. Otherwise, you can fall into dark places because it is very lonely.